everyone. Welcome to Screen Geeks. This is Dave.
This is Barry.
And in the spirit of keeping things light and happy and airy and fun, we're talking Brightburn. It's gonna be a good time, I think. This is a movie I shouldn't like. Like, it's evil kids. It's possibly defecating on ideas of certain superheroes. This is an iffy proposition, and I'm surprised I liked it. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, this is an interesting film for me too, and I'll say like a lot of comic book fans, I was not aware that this film was even coming. The trailer was a total shock. Apparently, they made it in total secrecy. Somehow, this movie only cost $6 million, which I think is incredible because it looks great. It looks like it cost at least twice that or three times that. Yeah, this is the Superman story with a bit of the Omen, and I love it. I absolutely love it. This is exactly the kind of tweaking with formula, tweaking with expectations I think the Superman saga really needs, frankly. It's obviously it's not a Superman movie, but it is. Exactly. And, it's never going to be considered canon, but I welcome it as kind of unofficial canon.
Yeah, like Damien. Yes, if Damien was Superman, it is like exactly what it is, but also not even close to what it is. So yeah. Let's go ahead and roll the trailer. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more about it and its history and origins and all that fun stuff. We'll be right back.
He was in the barn.
Did he find it?
No. It was like he was drawn to it.
He may look like us. He's not like us.
So I thought maybe before we dig into the actual story itself, it might be good to talk about kind of where James Gunn was. I mean, I know he's a producer, but he's a producer kind of to help get his brother's screenplay made. And he's had a bit of a bumpy ride. I think that's fair to say, especially as of late. But this was before all that. So it felt like after Guardians 2, he's like, I just need something a little bit smaller to get involved with. So like you said, a $6 million film, that looks like so much more than $6 million. I feel like in a way this isn't it's totally James Gunn. It totally isn't. Like, I know his brothers wrote it. I don't want to give them short shrift at all. But looking at his older films, like looking at Slither, the trauma stuff that he was involved with, and even like the I don't even know if you can find it anywhere, but he did this series called PG Porn, which was everything you love about porn except the sex.
I remember that. Yeah.
And the first one featured Nathan Fillion in a video called Nailing Your Wife, where he accidentally murders the boss's wife before anything nasty can happen. And it's just this turning everything on its ear just right. And taking an idea and really fleshing it out in a way you honestly, you don't have to flesh out an idea like that as much as he did. But the project ends up being even better for it. Even something goofy like that web series that I don't even know where it is anymore.
Wasn't it Funny or Die, or
it was another site completely that went off, that died like shortly after it finished. And the videos like got progressively darker and darker and darker. Like, it was really messed up stuff, but still playing with that same conceit that it's just like, it's all these setups, but without, bow and chicka bow wow. So this kind of feels like in that vein, him getting back to his roots somewhat in that way.
Well, I mean, if we're going to talk about his roots, we should probably talk about Trauma. I mean, he began as one of Lloyd Kaufman's finest. He, of course, I believe he's the author of Romeo and Juliet.
Yes.
There was a time in his life. I mean, he was married to Jenna Fisher at one point. Of course, she's most famous for The Office. He was married to her. He made Romeo and Juliet, and he was one of the the graduates of Trauma University, if you will. And it was around that time, with his irreverent sense of humor, and certainly in line with the outrageous facade of Trauma. I mean, it's facade, but it's also the kind of movies they put out. This is when the tweets happen, and of course, a career that Slither was a big breakthrough, but then again, so was Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2. It was around the time after this film came out, if I remember correctly, and I think you do as well, that the tweets came out that he had done years earlier. And it led to Disney finding out about them, and of course the canceling of the canceling altogether of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
And the funny thing is, like, we're going to get into the people who actually made the film, but I think it's worth kind of discussing everything that's happened with Gunn. When he was hired to do Guardians of the Galaxy, all I could think was PG Born, was Slither, was being involved with Troma. I'm like, wow, that's a ballsy move by Disney. Because with the Troma lifestyle, I'll say, there is a type, and it's very sophomoric humor. It's very crass humor. And the fact that Disney was willing to take that shot, I was like, this could really end up being an interesting film, which I think lent itself to have that irreverent tone that's so beloved in the Guardians films and with the Guardians themselves. So like when it came out, everyone's like, do you know this? I'm like, do you not know who this guy was? Like we have dear friends, Zach Bynes and Richard Taylor, their film Adam the Amazing Zombie Killer. Just this past week, they just signed it over to Troma. So they've worked with Lloyd. They were instrumental in us getting to talk to Lloyd quite a few years ago, do that podcast interview at the hotel so many moons ago. And so like we got a pretty good idea about how that works. And it's like, you got to know what you're getting into. And so to suddenly have the outrage and not allow for actual personal growth was what kind of put me off to the whole thing. And fortunately, it seems like that's been very rectified, but still it's like, did it really need to happen? Like, I guess I am of the opinion that the past should stand because it's part of our greater story as people, and it should stand as testament to when we change and how we change, that we have that mile marker in the past of when we said horrible things and may have done horrible things, said horrible things and hurtful things, that, the actual life change is what's really the proof in that pudding, as opposed to going on the celebrity apology tour and going to rehab or whatever it is. I don't know if you ride with that or not, but. Oh,
sorry. No, I was letting you complete your thought there. No, I mean, it's a provocative topic, and I appreciate you bringing it up. I mean, on the one hand, I'm with you, Dave. I mean, the stuff that he brought up, I mean, I've read some of those things. I mean, they're really gross and outrageous and stupid and thoughtless.
They're stupid.
But at the same time, no, I mean, he was a younger man when he wrote them. I think there's almost an expectation, if you're going to make a movie like Romeo and Juliet, that you would put out something like that. And I don't mean to indicate that there's a direct correlation between Troma and his tweets. I mean, I'm sure James Gunn would, say like, I take my responsibility for what he did, as he has. I do think it was a thing of the past. I do think it was dirty the way it was brought up. And I think, it was also, it gave an opportunity for a conversation about this, and Disney just said like, no, you're fired, you're done. And I don't know. I don't think that was the right decision. Certainly not the way it happened, again, so abruptly and without any kind of context whatsoever. It was just like, look how bad this guy is. And, and again, it's like, he wrote this how long ago? And it was referring to what? And I don't know. It's tough because Disney is this gigantic corporation that's all about making people happy and about being family friendly and about, getting invited into our living rooms. So I understand that, obviously what he did was considered to be an affront to their good, wholesome image. But at the same time, I agree with you. I mean, like, they should have considered who they hired, because they did hire this, really cracked maverick. I mean, honestly, he's not he's not as accomplished as Trey Parker, but that's the kind of guy they hired. It really is. They should have considered that. And they should also consider that, and I agree with you, Dave, that's one of the best things about Guardians of the Galaxy. It's directed by a human being, an interesting human being who has a great sense of humor, has a great cracked take on that world, which is why it's one of the few Marvel movies that feels like it's directed by a human being and not a machine. So I do, I'm with you. I mean, I think there are different ways to talk about this. And I think, there's certain examples where you would go, okay, no, that doesn't work. That's not acceptable. This, on the other hand, I mean, it does feel like, looking at something someone wrote on a bathroom wall in high school and go, look what that guy did, get him out of here. Like, it felt out of context with reality. So yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I have mixed feelings about all this stuff. Obviously, I mean, in the age of Me Too, I do believe that monsters should be called out. I do believe that jerks and bullies and certainly sex addicts and just monsters in general, I think should be called out. And I like all the movements that's happened with the Me Too movement. But with Jamie Gunn, I do agree. It did it just didn't feel right. There was just something off about that whole decision. It felt very knee-jerk reaction as opposed to anything that, where they could have sat down and said, like, look, let's talk about this, maybe like make a statement about this, have a conversation about this. Like, it's like, no, you're done. You're off of this movie. And it's like, I don't know. It didn't feel off to me.
I think you really touched on something. Like, with Troma is such an interesting beast because their entire stock and trade is pushing the limit. Without them pushing the limit, we don't get Cannibal the Musical. We don't get a lot of the Toxic Avenger movies. Well, whether that's good or bad is up to you. But they're really pushing the limits. And then you got Disney, who is so risk averse. Like, they're so risk averse that, I'm sorry, oh well, spoilers for a movie that's several years old. When several of the top grossing characters die at the end of Infinity War, you're like, oh, this is an X-Men The Last Stand situation, isn't it? It's all going to prove to be BS at the end, and it's not going to matter, which proved to be the case. So it's not. I'm not surprised that there would be some friction there. But yeah, I guess it kind of makes sense that happened, but it felt very disingenuous when the controversy first came up. Let's talk about, okay, so let's get into actual Brightburn. It felt
no. Seriously, Dave, I'm glad you brought this up because it is an important thing to talk about. I mean, I think the word that I keep using when I talk about politics or when I talk about anything that's provocative, controversial, it's nuance.
Yes.
There's no nuance to what happened to this guy. It's like on the one hand, I mean, I think you could go either way. Well, he did these awful tweets, so it's a good thing they fired him, or like, well, they shouldn't have fired him because they should have considered, all these other things. But there's no nuance. No one's talking about, like, should this have happened? Why did this happen? What became, did he learn anything from it? Yes, he did. And, in the time that, thankfully it wasn't a very long time, but there was a time where he was fired and then the members of Guardians of the Galaxy took his defense. And a lot of the comic book fans are going like, this doesn't feel like the issue that Disney is making it out to be.
And then DC hired him and they're like, we're taking him. And Marvel, I think that's what happened. Then Marvel said, oh crap. I think that's really what happened. But this is all before that happened.
Yes.
It's interesting that, he threw his weight behind this film to bring people together who he believed in. So like the director, of Brightburn. Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. His only thing that he worked on was, he hasn't done a heck of a lot. He did a Korn video, and he worked on a Belko experiment VR thing, which Gunn wrote, and so it like between that and getting behind his brothers, it's like, hey, there's a really interesting idea here. Throwing my weight behind it's actually going to help get this thing made, and then we end up with. Like you said, it's a Superman movie, but it's not Superman. And I think that's what I appreciate most about it, is that it didn't bother trying to have the artifice of what if Superman was this? And then essentially my biggest issue with a lot of the bad takes on Superman is that it doesn't stay true to the core of the character. And this gave them the liberty to be more like, well, this isn't Clark Kent. This isn't Kal-El. This is random alien kid in the exact same situation, and this is what could have happened. And I know that this strikes near and dear to your heart because of a series that you adore that's around Superman, that's kind of an alternate universe take.
I suppose I should just bring that up really quickly. I mean, that's the first thing I thought of when I saw the trailer, not because it has anything to do with Brightburn necessarily, but my favorite graphic novel about Superman is Superman Red Sun. The idea that what if the boy from the broken world of Krypton had not crash landed in Smallville, but had landed in the USSR and was raised to be a superpower, literally and figuratively a superpower against the enemy that was the United States of America. I think it's brilliant. There's just, there is this interchangeability to a lot of these comic book movies, even the Superman movies. So seeing somebody go at this differently is exciting to me. And I don't care if it's, it's something that's really, off the beaten track, or, something obviously in this case that's, considered to be, well, irreverent, because that's what Gunn is. I welcome that kind of thing, because obviously this is outside of the DC movies. This is, it's outside of the comic book genre. It's even outside of the horror genre, because it's this very distinct hybrid. If this movie wasn't skillfully made, I don't think we'd be talking about it. I think it would have been, the kind of this one trick wonder. We'd be like, okay, great, that's a clever concept, but I don't know. And I know it didn't.
Bro, tell us what's next.
Exactly. And and I know it didn't perform particularly well. It didn't like make a big splash with audiences. It made a profit because it costs so little to make. But I do think it's worthy of more attention that it received, because I think it's not only provocative enough with its idea, but I think it really is valuable that we have the equivalent of like an evil Superman movie. And I know that sounds like a funny thing, but I mean, that's what this film is. And I think we're blessed to have that, because we're always going to have Superman be, the peachy keen, the iconic and wonderful image that Christopher Reeve gave us. I love that this movie gives us a different idea, and it takes the idea as far as it could go, I think.
I will say, as far as Red Sun goes, read the book. Don't watch the animated movie. It's
I've not seen the animated movie.
Boring. I got bored watching it, and that's a really good story. And it just, doesn't work. So I told you I was going to spring something on you. And okay. I feel like the Snyder boys are going to be so pissed at me, and I really don't care. Brightburn feels more like how Clark would have turned out had he actually dealt with Hollow Jor-El as opposed and crappy Jonathan Kent. I don't know how you feel about that, but that was my biggest qualm with Snyder's take, is like it just completely betrayed the entire core of what made Superman Superman. And so if you've got the alien dad who's like take over the world, and you've got the human dad who's like hide yourself, you are to be feared, I don't see him turning out to be the good guy. I see him more in line with turning into this kid. Like, it's repress yourself, don't be who you are. This is what you get. So I think this movie really did a wonderful thing with the trailer. Like, trailers can really just spoil and screw up the entire movie. This movie kind of gave you the setup for the story, and then let you decide if you want to go along for the ride or not. I guess that could play into the box office not being super fantastic for it. When I showed the trailer for this at Starfest the year before, everyone went nuts, because that is a heck of a good trailer. But it also set up the expectations of, okay, I'm going to sit back, I'm going to go for the ride, and I'm going to see how this turns out. Like, I think as critics, our job is to try to meet a movie where it is, and let it try to make its case for being a compelling story, and see where it goes with it. And this is a film, like I said, that has a lot more thought put into it than could have been done by less steady hands and less sure hands. Yeah. And the work was put in to give you the ability to actually, if you want to, kind of go along with, Damien, if you will. Brandon, sorry. I was like, what was his name? Brandon. Brandon's a kid going through a hard time in life. And it felt like, it's like the most messed up coming of age film I've seen in a while. I think that's a fair way to put it. In that no one understands him, no one listens to him. His parents know that, spoilers. Sorry, kids, we're spoiling this movie. It only came out last year, didn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. It was last year. They were
2020.
Pretty recent.
It's 3 decades ago, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know, but his parents are holding back like who he is at this time that would probably help him understand what's going on to him physically as he's hitting puberty and, on crack, on steroids, superhuman steroids, whatever. And as he's having these issues trying to deal with these, with these very difficult grown-up feelings, his parents are just kind of like shutting him down, especially his dad, who's just kind of like got to give tough love. And it's like, do you really give tough love to Superman? That doesn't seem like it's going to end well. And guess what? It doesn't in this movie. Like, the bullying stuff, it's just like, I don't condone what happens in this movie. Brandon's he does horrible things, makes really bad decisions. However, I remember when I was a teenager, and teenage life was not happy for me. Like, I've just come to grips with the fact that I'm a dork, and I'm okay with it now. But like,
not alone, Dave.
Yeah.
We're
literally screen geeks. Come on. But like, to imagine going through those really tough times and being able to do something about it, like, in a very scary way. And that's kind of where this movie got really interesting for me. I don't know if that I've kind of spouted enough. I should let you.
No, I appreciate it. No, you brought up so many good things. This is why I love this segment. That you said, like, there's all these good movies that came out we didn't talk about. We're clearly seeing a lot of the same stuff here. I mean, when this film came out, it was criticized for being too violent. People were like, it's too violent, it's too gory.
It's
We
brutal.
can't appreciate it. It's a comic book movie. It's too violent for whatever. You mentioned earlier Zack Snyder, and I feel like there's way too much audio on the ScreenGeeks legacy of me bashing Zack Snyder. So here's another one.
Not enough. Okay.
Not enough. All right. Well, like the one thing to give him a little bit of credit, the one thing about his version of it is that Superman is truly alien. I think that's one of the things that I don't like about it. I've never found Henry Cavill all that interesting, really, as an actor. His take on Superman, I always thought was really just kind of one note and kind of hollow. But I got to say, those movies embrace the fact that he's an extraterrestrial, and that's interesting because we've really received the humanity of this guy prior. Christopher Reeve and the very underrated Brandon Routh, they've shown us the humanity of this character. Whereas I think Cavill kind of went into a darker area because that's what you do when you're in a Zack Snyder movie. And this film does something, but I think this movie does something provocative that is better than what Snyder did. And I think it's also in line very much with an extension of what I like about Superman Returns, which I know is no one's favorite Superman movie, but I like that film. What that film did, which I think is very underrated, was that it becomes a literal question, but then it also becomes the movie's big question: is does the world need Superman? The question of Brightburn is, does Superman need the world? And the question is, no, he doesn't. He's a little boy. He's pissed. He's going through all the changes you go through as a kid. He's a petulant child. He has the powers of gods. He's surrounded by ants. He doesn't have to put up with this crap. He does not have to put up with our limitations as people. Now, on the one hand, because he's being raised, again, we could talk about this movie like it's a Superman movie, even though it isn't, but it is. Even though he's being raised by the equivalent of Mom, Pa Kent. And as you said, like it's twofold because they are trying to contain him the way a parent is trying to contain an unruly child. You and I are both parents. There's an aspect to this that's obviously very on the nose. But at the same time, it's a fantastic idea. This question of like, well, eventually, if your child is going to grow up to be Dr. Manhattan, he doesn't need you. And he doesn't need to be nice, and he doesn't need to be polite, and he doesn't even need to follow the rules because his logic is that his existence is outside of the rules. It's obviously a very pessimistic, cynical way to look at this. That's the beautiful thing about Superman being a Christ allegory. He is both all God, all man. He comes here because he loves us and he wants to protect us, and he is a savior of humanity. That is again, it's a Christ metaphor, but it's also everything that Superman is. In this case, it's the opposite. It's like, well, you know what? This kid wants an ice cream cone, and if anybody gets in his way, he's going to swat us away like flies because that is his ability. We may need Superman, but Superman does not need us. And this movie is taking that in a very dark direction. And I thought, like, you know what? This movie is ugly at times. The violence is quite extreme at times, but it's smarter than The Omen. Because with The Omen, you never had a sense of who Damien Thorne was. And I'm teaching this horror cinema class. I just dealt with The Omen a couple of weeks ago with my class. We did a week-long study of it. And, The Omen, like, one of the interesting things about the movie, but it's also a limitation, is we never get a sense of the inner life of this kid. Does he like being the son of the devil? Does he like having powers? Does he like having the ability to manipulate people, manipulate animals? You never get a sense of that. And it's, on the one hand, you could say, well, it's mysterious, blah, 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 but who is Damien Thorne? In this case, we know who this kid is. We see clearly why he's upset, and it's all things that are relatable on one level. But on the other hand, if we were children and we were bullied, we were frustrated, we felt that our parents were hypocrites, we felt like the world that we live in was a lie, and we're just stymied by all of the limitations of the world around us. Yes, I think we would act out and use our powers on the irritating people around us. So again, it's like I don't mean to be so cynical, but I think the film is at that level. And I think that's why it's so intriguing to see what would it be like if Superman grew up to be a bad kid.
I think an interesting thing, I'm not saying that this was really what they were going for, but I think it does bring up an interesting nature versus nurture thing in that, like, the Jonathan Kent type character in this film is not Jonathan Kent. Like, it's very clear that Jonathan Kent is from that greatest generation who took responsibility very much for what was coming down. He saw the gravity of what could be happening with his son. And so he spent a lot of time instilling that grace, instilling the good, instilling the need for patience, to look out for other people, for all that stuff. And I kind of wonder if this film is kind of saying, yeah, that guy doesn't exist anymore. And so when he doesn't exist and we still bring Superman to Earth, this is what could happen. It made the interesting thing is the film is, you said, it's very dark. It's very, it's more grounded in reality than Snyder's stuff. Like I know I give that Snyder hate. I have no problem continuing to do so. I don't. But if you're really going to go realistic, like it gets to the point like he breaks the girl's hand, and then he wants to go make it up to her because he kind of likes her. It's that, it's really jacked up Damien the Omen Superman version of pulling a girl's ponytail. And then he goes and like sneaks up to her room, a la Edward from Twilight, except it's called out as being creepy and pervy like it is. And then, the mom calls him a pervert and whatever. And then we have that horrific scene in the restaurant that just, it is brutal. It is horrifying. A glass shard removal will never be the same for me ever again. Especially the really smart move to go point of view after the glass is removed. Like, I don't want to I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube flagging us for talking about gross stuff, but it's like, it's a really messed up thing he did, but you kind of understand where it is. He feels betrayed. He feels mad at the mean older lady, she's in her, mid 30s or whatever. To him, she's an old lady and she was mean. And so what do you do, the Wicked Witch of the West, if you actually have the powers to take her down a peg and you don't need that bucket of water? That's kind of what that scene played into. And the film made a very smart choice, I think, to take the film from Brandon's point of view to really lay it out. I don't know that if I wasn't a parent, I would give this movie as much latitude as I did. Actually, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't. But working again, trying to, understand the world through my daughter's point of view so I can help her try to understand the world better and life better and cope better. Like, I see what he's going on. It's like, again, there's no excuse for it, but I totally get it. And that's a really tough thing to do. Like I'm a lot of folks loved The Lodge, and I hated it for that exact reason. It's like, if you'd listened to the dadgum kids, none of that stuff would have happened. And it's kind of the same thing here. It's like, if you'd actually, I don't want to say, because again, as parents, we know, but you and I both know we're doing our best here, and we're going to have good days and bad days. But it felt like if these parents had taken more of an interest in their son, maybe this wouldn't have happened.
An interest, or even just a better understanding of how to deal with this. I mean, it was, obviously, to give these parents all the credit in the world. This is an extraordinary circumstance they're in.
Like would I tell my kid that he's an alien when he's, hitting puberty? I don't know if I would or not. I probably would, but like, I also see why someone may not, because they're like, we don't know what the heck's going on.
I think the metaphor would be, like if you had to tell your child they were adopted, or if you had to tell your child that, mommy and daddy have not been honest about who we are, if you had to tell your child we're getting a divorce, whatever it is, that thing that, as a child, you're, being a child, one of the things about being a child and having an enjoyable childhood is having things that you rely on, the reliable, that the floor isn't going to, fall up from underneath you. There's the things that you expect with your parents. So when there's that displacement, that's when a lot of kids break. And I'll say quickly, I'm a child of divorce. My parents broke when I was 10 years old, and it definitely felt like, the earth was cracking underneath me. I felt like I don't even know who these guys are anymore. Like I could relate, I thought I could rely on you guys. Now it's like, okay, I got to see dad on the weekend and with mom, that whole arrangement. It does mess with you when you're a kid, because again, it's like, the expectations when you're a kid are birthday parties and Halloween and grades, like all the things, that you expect from a childhood because of however you were raised. This movie is interesting because, again, like I do side with the parents here. I do like the decisions that they made. And I got to say really quickly, David Denman plays the father. He's best known for Roy on The Office, but I mean, he's a really wonderful character actor. He's so much better than Roy on The Office. And the mother is played by Elizabeth Banks, who's very hot and cold with me. She's done movies I love. She's made movies I can't stand.
Charlie's Angels. Sorry.
What's that?
I just said Charlie's Angels.
Charlie's Angels, yeah, that is one unfortunate film, I must say. Yeah. But she's good here. She's really good here, to give her all the credit in the world. I like her performance in this. Yeah, I agree with you. I think, if the other thing, in addition to it being, this very, this this very dark retelling of the Superman lore, it is a movie about, it's using our limitations as parents as fodder for the horror angle. Because a lot of this stuff is just like worst case scenario. It's like, what's the worst thing your child could do when they're out of your care? What's the worst thing your child could be doing in terms of plotting against you, acting out? It does work that way. And again, I think it's a better film than The Omen because I think it explores the idea a lot further, and it gives this kid an inner life. Again, like in a way, like I don't blame the kid for doing anything that he does, because on the one hand, he is a human being and he should know right from wrong, but he's also a god. He's also, he's also like the shark from Jaws. He just can't help being who he is. And he has the ability to be the biggest fish in the ocean. So,
and the reality is, once he gets to the alien tech to find out who he is, I think regardless of how he was raised, there's a very good chance he turns into what he is no matter what. Because he gets that download of information and he's just like, oh, I'm here to take over all this mess. And and that's when the movie really gets scary. Like you got, that Elizabeth Banks, I like her a lot in her performances for the most part. I think she's pretty darn great. I love her in the Lego movies. Just her work in general, I really enjoy. Like I made the dig about Charlie's Angels because it's a legitimately bad movie.
It is.
But I like her and I root for her and I root for her to succeed. Like I don't write her off as a filmmaker. Like we've all got filmmakers who may have made a movie that just didn't quite connect with us. And then it's like, well, I hope you catch me on the next one. And that's definitely the case with Miss Banks. I think she's really talented. But there's that as evidence that by the end of this movie, she's trying to prove through with the mother's love that I'm with you. I'm here for you. I'm going to do whatever I need to. I'm going to try to save you, And then when it's very clear that's not going to work and she finally breaks down and fears for her life, it's just like, it's heartbreaking. And that's a really, like, this movie is a tightrope walking act through the entire thing. Like a misstep anywhere and this movie falls apart completely. And I'm just like, this movie, it's the kind of movie I shouldn't like because it is overly grotesque. Like it is a rough movie. But the performances really redeem it. Like you said, David Denman, I think, while I may lob some criticism at the character, there's no doubt that he's doing his best with this thing.
Yeah.
And they're in an impossible situation. And it just worked out really bad for them. And it's like, it's such a fully fleshed out film that I walked away from it saying, wow, that was a really dark time. I'm kind of depressed. I'm really glad superheroes don't actually exist. But holy cow, this was kind of a miracle of a movie.
Yeah, I agree with you. The only thing about the film I don't like is the end credits, where it's trying to do some world building, clearly trying to set up a sequel. I thought, no,
the Legion of Doom, come on.
Yeah, you're done, guys. No. Like this is it. It's I think the idea, because I mean the grown up version of this movie is that unfortunate sequence in Superman 3 where Superman goes on a bender. I don't think we need more of that. I think the idea.
Why you got to bring Superman 3 into this? Oh, why you got to do that?
Well, I mean, come on. I mean, it's the dark days of Clark Kent. It's I think and obviously to say the least, it obviously could be done better than that. And we've had obviously superhero movies that have explored the idea of a definitively good character having a dark night of the soul, so to speak. But I do think that because it's a kid, I do think this movie takes this idea as far as it could go. I don't want to see a sequel. I don't want to see the college years. I don't. I think this is, it's the same thing with The Omen. Like people don't talk about this, but they did 2 Omen sequels. One where the kid was in military school, and then one where he's a grown politician played by Sam Neill in his film debut. And it's not as scary as when it's a little boy, because there is that sense of like, oh, he should be sweet. He should be, respectful and dutiful, like all little boys should be. And look what he's doing. I just don't think it's as interesting, and certainly not as painful if he's a grown up who should know better.
Absolutely. I think if they did a sequel, which I don't think they will, I don't think that it made the budget back to do it. I think it would have gone straight to Evil Justice League, which could have been interesting. And I forget, did Warner Brothers put this out?
No, I think it's Sony. I mean,
okay.
let me double check. Let me
let's use the interweb.
Let's see. I think it's Sony.
Yes, it is Sony, I believe.
Okay.
Sony or Screen Gems, is it? I'm looking at the
Yeah, I think it's one of those. If it's
Okay.
Screen Gems, I gotta say it's the only Screen Gem that Screen Gems has ever released. If that's the case, not to be a
I wish
jerk,
you
but I've
wouldn't
never
hold
watched
back so
anything
much.
without Screen Gems. If I watch a movie that's like Screen Gems, I'm like, oh god, this is not gonna be good.
Yeah, it is a Screen Gems movie.
Okay, well, hey, good on you, Screen Gems.
We
You
got a
did
winner.
it, you did it, Screen Gems.
Well, I mean, it's kind of taking the Blumhouse model. I mean, for $6 million, holy crap! Like they essentially said, James Gunn wants to be involved. Sure, whatever you need.
They stretched that 6 million. The production values are good. I mean, if this filmmaker did anything, I thought that's very distinct is that he does recreate the iconography of Smallville. He does recreate like the feeling that this could be and is in a sense, a reconfigured version of the second act of Superman the movie. It really does look and feel like it exists in that world. The special effects are wonderful. They're great. I never doubted their validity. I thought they looked really convincing. It's the CGI. It's obviously a heavily CGI, but I thought it was really effective. This is for a low budget movie. I think it really kicks. I never got a sense like they didn't have a lot of money to make this. If anything, if you had told me like 30 million, 40 million, I would say, well, obviously, but no, man, like less than 10 million. That's talent right there. This director did one other film. He did a little horror film I've never seen called The Hive. And obviously he's going from like low budget to the big leagues. I applaud him. I look forward to seeing the next movie from the director of Brightburn.
Absolutely, yeah. This movie showed a lot of promise. They put a lot of work in to make sure you couldn't see the seams. So the movie felt grimy. So when the CG is kind of grimy, it makes sense in that world. Which, when you don't have to do super shiny, pretty Marvel CGI, you can get away with a lower budget, I would think, just because you don't have to put in quite as much polish on it. And in this case, like too much polish would have been a detriment to the film. I absolutely agree. Like everyone involved with this, like I'm on the lookout for anything that they do going forward because this was a very unique film that really took the idea and ran with it and created a truly compelling story, which was really impressive to me.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, the movie, I think upon the first glance of the trailer, I thought that looks interesting. That looks really provocative. But at the same time, it's also like, okay, it's the evil Superman movie. What a one note limited idea. And instead, no, they did some things with this movie that are really thoughtful. Things that, by the way, I would like to see the actual Superman franchise embrace the ideas that this guy is both all God and all man. Embrace the ideas that he's making a choice to be good. It's not innate within Superman. Superman is making the choice to be a good guy. I feel like particularly the first two Superman movies, the real Superman movies with Christopher Reeve, I feel like they explored that idea, and that's why they're so good to this day. And I feel like the recent films have completely lost that. And, I guess we'll have to see what Mr. Snyder does with his wacky new Snyder cuts, which everyone's excited about. I am not.
Jared Leto, that's all I got to say.
It could be the Snyder cut of Sucker Punch. I would feel the same way about it. Just like, I'm not looking forward to this, guys. Like, this didn't work the first time. I'm not expecting it to work the second time, but it has a lot of people optimistic. And I want to share that optimism, but, fool me once, And, Batman v Superman, I got to say, to give that movie credit, there's stuff in Batman v Superman I like. I like all the Batman stuff. When that movie was Ben Affleck and Jeremy Irons, I thought, this is fun. I'm digging this. And then all the other dozens of characters would show up and ruin it. But, like, there's good stuff in that movie. Snyder can direct. I just don't like most of his films. And I feel like he's great with imagery. He's not really good with, things like, story, character. But Brightburn gets it with a little budget and just being willing to take this idea as far as it can go. They came up with something special.
I have a fairly new friend who we were talking Snyder some, and he really likes Snyder. And I was just like, oh, dude, okay, we can still be friends, but bro, he's like, look, just tell me that he knows how to frame a shot. I'm like, absolutely. Like the iconography and how to frame things and get those money shots. The problem is that Batman v Superman is all money shots without earning any of the moments that made those iconic scenes actually work and mean something. So this is not a Batman v Superman movie. So I was going to be all happy, and then you went there. And my idea I was going to pitch at you was like, if they made another movie, it'd be amazing if like Warner Brothers bought the rights to Brightburn and then turned it into like the Justice Lords. I don't know if you're into that side of things, like if you've watched the Justice League cartoon at all.
I haven't, no.
Where essentially alternate universe, the Justice League has become the Justice Lords, and they are ruling over the world with the earth with an iron fist, because that's the only way they can keep the peace. And if they kind of tried to do that and bring in the Justice League, I don't know how you do it with Snyder. I mean, this is like an idea after you reboot the universe entirely, but like that could be kind of interesting. Otherwise, I'm kind of with you. I'm kind of happy with where the world is. I'd be interested if they wanted to come up with an idea, because frankly, they've built up enough faith and enough cachet with me that I'm willing to give them a shot. Like if they want to try something else crazy, I'm down. I'll go along for the ride. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But hey, I'll give it a try. Yeah, that was just kind of like the idea was like that would be kind of cool if it was an interdimensional thing. But beyond that, I'm perfectly happy to leave this film alone. It is. I don't think I wanted to throw the masterpiece thing around with it, but it is an incredibly solid film.
No, I agree. It's great. It is absolutely great. I mean, masterpiece is a bit much, but I mean, I do think that, I mean, this is a bold film. It's a bold idea. It's obviously divisive because you're going to lose the horror movie fans who like don't really want to see a superhero movie. And you're really losing the superhero fans who just want to see like their Dark Superman movie. I think most people were not happy with how gory this film is. It's incredibly gory. I mean, it is in line with Slither. It does have an irreverence to it. It does have it's nasty at times. It's genuinely nasty, but I think it earns that. If for no other reason, it's the only film of its type. And I'm happy with that, because let's face it, Superman, certainly the way the character is now, it tends to be very corporate, and it tends to be very much like what the audience wants with it. I don't feel like we have a truly daring filmmaker right now who has their mitts on Superman. So I don't know that we're ever going to get an actual Superman movie that's like this. As is, I mean, whether you take this as a Superman movie or just an idea that's, playing on, a darkening of the capes, so to speak, an idea of taking, what should be a fanciful and whimsical idea and turning it as dark as it can be. It's great for what it is. It really is. I would love for this movie to become a cult item. I would love for it to get a cult following. Right now, I feel like there's people like us that dig it. And then you have everyone else who's like, it was too violent, or I saw that the day it opened and I haven't looked back. Like, I think this is a movie that deserves repeat viewings. I do.
It feels odd to say. Like, I almost just bought into the old hype from when we used to do this, 8 years ago, where it was like everything has to be the best thing ever, or it's complete and utter crap. This movie is it feels odd to put it this way, but it's kind of a breath of fresh air for superhero movies.
Yeah.
Or meta movies, meta-human movies might be a better way, because obviously he's not a superhero. But yeah, you can catch it everywhere. I think, is it on Hulu right now? I'm gonna check.
It was for a while. I don't know if it's still up there, but yeah, it was for quite some time.
Let me check the Googles and see what's going on. While we're doing that, I want to give a quick shout out to a series that our good friend, first recorded episode guest, Walter Chow, is doing a thing with the Denver Public Library, where he's hosting like a thing every week talking about a movie. And this past weekend, so this is releasing Tuesday, on Saturday, today when we're recording this, he did a talk with Scott Derrickson talking about Suspiria, which I was like, wow, that's amazing, because I feel completely and utterly unprepared. Hearing that they're talking about this movie, I'm like, I can definitely learn something, because I, just watched it the one time and found it fascinating. But it's like, these are smart guys who are actually talking about it. But they are capping off the Halloween season this Saturday on Halloween, talking A Tale of Two Sisters, which I know is one of Barry's favorite horror movies of all time.
It is, yeah. No film has ever scared me that much. I shouldn't use that kind of movie critic hype and say it's the scariest movie I've ever seen, but that's the fact of the matter. I saw it when it played at I saw it at the Tivoli in Denver. I saw it with my buddy Zach, and there's a scene in the film. It's the bedroom scene, and I did lean over to my friend after the scene was over and said, "Do you want to go? Do you want to go? I don't know about this one." Because, I mean, it made me that uncomfortable. It scared me that viciously. And we stuck to it. And walking out of the theater, we both said that thing was terrifying. But that's one of the best films of the year. It was so beautiful. I love those characters. I love everything about it. It's a masterpiece. But it did scare me so profoundly. I didn't rewatch it until just last year, because I wanted to write an article about it. And I watched it alone in my office at the university where I teach. I closed the door and I shut off the lights and I put it on. It still scared me. Even though I knew what was going to happen, and I knew, like, oh, I know the girl is underneath the oven, and I know, like, what's going to happen in this scene, it still scared me so much. I thought, man, like, this movie is so brilliant, and I'm still not ready for it, even though I've already seen it. So anyway, scariest movie ever made, Tale of Two Sisters. I think it's an easy call for me. I love that they're talking about it because it is a masterpiece. It's a brilliant, brilliant film.
Yeah, so I'm looking up to see if I can find the link to it. If I can, I'll post it on our Facebook page. Just talking about that they're going to be doing that. It's a thing you have to register for. It's just on a Zoom meeting, but you do not have to live in Colorado to be part of it, which was very cool. So they had, we had over 100 people in the Zoom call today, and it was just an absolute blast hearing them talk about, Walter's such a film historian. He's talking about like people well and well before, like in the 1800s, and how it all relates to Argento. And it was just, it gave great perspective. I'm actually going to reach out to the person who was hosting it and see if they're going to make it public, because I think they should. But I will put up the link for the other thing, for the Tale of Two Sisters, probably on Tuesday when this releases, just so everyone has a chance to do it. Let's just wrap this sucker up. I don't want to keep spinning our wheels. I think we've said plenty about this fantastic film. It is only available on Starz right now, so unless you want to buy it or do a free trial off Amazon Prime or through their app or whatever, it looks like that's the only way you can watch Brightburn right now. But if you want to catch old episodes of the podcast, you can go to ScreenGeeks.com. You can hit wherever you're watching this video for old episodes of our revival, I'll call it. You can hit our Facebook page, facebook.com/ScreenGeeks. You can also message us there. You can email us, podcast, Barry and Dave, all at ScreenGeeks.com. On YouTube, we are at ScreenGeeks.youtube.com. Working on the Discord still. Thanks as always to Five Iron Frenzy for giving us their fantastic music from their last album. I've heard some of the new stuff and it is phenomenal. I know we played the actual song that we use, Zen and the Art of Xenophobia. This next album takes it up a notch. That's all I'm going to say. They really don't hold back. If you want to leave us a voicemail, by all means, give us a call at 970-315-2048. And last week we talked Halloween, and we decided, hey, let's go ahead and talk another franchise that had the stones to just say, you know what, none of those sequels happened. That's right, folks. We're talking Terminator Dark Fate next week. I'm excited for that. Are you?
Oh, yeah. Can't wait.
Well, of course you are. I brought it up, and you're like, yes, let's do it. So until next week, this is Dave.
This is Barry.
Take it easy.